Clint Hurdle knows about the Sports Illustrated jinx. He was featured on the cover of the March 20th, 1978 issue as an up-and-coming star with the Kansas City Royals. The former Merritt Island High standout never fully lived up to his billing as a baseball player, but he has been highly successful in his second career as a manager for both the Colorado Rockies and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Former Merritt Island baseball coach Chuck Goldfarb has fond memories of Hurdle. "I've known him since he was 12, said Goldfarb. "Clint had by far the most talent of any player I ever had." Hurdle graduated as a standout from Merritt Island High in 1975 and was taken by the Kansas City Royals in the first round of the Major League Baseball amateur draft. In 5 seasons with the Royals, Hurdle's best season was 1980 when Kansas City won the American League pennant. Hurdle hit .294 with 10 home runs and 60 runs batted in. The Royals then fell in 6 games to the Philadelphia Phillies in the World Series. Hurdle played well, recording 5 hits and 12 at-bats for a .417 batting average. Hampered by injuries in 1981, Hurdle played just 28 games but hit .329. Clint later played for the Reds, the Mets, and the Cardinals before returning to New York, where he retired as a Met. Hurdle finished his playing career after 10 seasons, compiling a .259 batting average. The Mets named Hurdle the manager of the St. Lucie Mets, and he managed in their organization through 1993. He then changed organizations in 1994 when the Colorado Rockies made him their minor league hitting instructor. He became the Rockies manager in 2002. In 2007, the exciting Rockies won 15 of their final 16 games to make the playoffs. Hurdle's Rockies then swept the Philadelphia Phillies and the Arizona Diamondbacks to reach the World Series for the first time ever. The dream season soon ended, however, when the Boston Red Sox swept Colorado in 4 games to win the World Series. Hurdle was fired by the Rockies in 2009. He helped the Texas Rangers reach the World Series in 2010 as the team's hitting instructor. Hurdle was interviewed for managerial positions after that season. He signed a 3-year deal with the Pirates. He entered the 2012 season with 606 managerial victories. So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we induct a proven winner into our Space Coast Sports Hall of Fame. We give you Clint Hurdle.
Welcome to Uncommon Engineering. I'm Dan Hawkins, head football coach at UC Davis, and I have with you a great friend, a great mentor, a great role model. Clint Hurdle, who I met back when I was at Colorado and he was with the Rockies. And so much of what defines Clint in my mind is not necessarily all the baseball stuff. It's all the other underlying and outlying stories. But a man we can learn a lot from as a husband, as a father, as a player, as a coach. So many things to offer us. But all the way, we're on the left coast, and Clint is out there in beautiful Florida, has escaped the weather of Pittsburgh. Welcome, my good friend, Clint Hurdle.
Thanks, Dan. It's really good to see you. Really good to see you.
Well, yeah, I was expecting to see some palm trees waving there in the background there.
Well, you know what? This is modern technology.
Look at that. Look at that.
How's that looking?
Oh, baby. I can't see your face, but, man, the rest of it looks good. The rest of it looks great.
Yeah, that's our backyard. That's our backyard. We're pretty blessed here. You got a quarantine. We're gonna be all right.
Hey, let's start there. You're in the quarantine now. You know, you're a parent. You got a couple of teenagers at home, and you're kind of a substitute teacher, and you got a range of subjects. So, tell us about that as a parent and how you're handling the quarantine. What you got going?
Actually, the last 7 months have been full of change for me. After I was fired at the end of September. I took about a month where I really didn't, people called, there was a couple job opportunities. I said, give me some time. I need to think some things through. And actually I started just plugging into home again, trying to find my rhythm back at home. I have, as you can probably understand, 2 weeks out of every month I'm gone. And even in the off season, you're gone, whether it's a seminar, whether it's the baseball winter meetings, it's a trip to the Dominican, you're gone. And then there's moments where you're home and you're not as home as you want to be or you should be. So for the last 7 months, I'm kind of like a puppy being housebroken. I did have an opportunity to get back in the game. I got offered a 2-year deal to go back to San Diego and be the hitting coach. And then 2 more teams called about bench coach opportunities. And I finally just talked to my wife. I said, we need to sit down. I need to hear from you. And she talked to me about, well, we'll do this or we'll do that, and we can adjust and we can adapt. I said, honey, for 45 years, people have been adapting to my lifestyle and my travels. It's been 45 years I've wore a uniform. I said, I don't know. I said, we got 2 kids that are a teenager. I'd really like to be a better father. I'd like to be a better husband. So basically, the middle of November, I decided to retire the uniform, put the uniform in the closet. And since then, it has been, it's 7 months. I'm being housebroken like a puppy, the things that are going on. And then we come in, you know, that one day we flipped the time, the time went from Eastern, spring, whatever, to fall. Well, not only that, but then the quarantine hit. So the clock has just been rearranged for us. 7 months home. I've only left the house for a trip twice, and that was early, 4-day trips. One was visit my oldest daughter, Ashley. One was just a 4-day deal to Clemson to see a coaching friend of mine, Monty Lee. So I've been home with my wife and kids for 6.5 months nonstop. Nothing like this. And now the school thing started. So we have 2 high schools, 2 teenagers. I am the English teacher. I'm the chorus teacher. I'm the PE teacher. I'm the Spanish teacher. And then I'm the driver's ed teacher for my son. We have a 17-year-old daughter with special needs. So we've got a lot going on we're trying to work through and help with. The good news is there's been no student suspensions and no bomb threats at the school. So they both want different teachers next year. We'll figure that one out when we get there. But a trip down memory lane, it's been, I think, Dan, you and I mentioned before, it's been 45, 44 years since I was in high school. We're reading Huck Finn. I'm doing things with chorus because of my passion for music, not because I have any kind of voice. But all the things I'm doing, plugging back into having to relearn, reboot, reignite, and to be patient. They're being patient with me. I need to be patient with them. But to set up some structure for some grace. Basically, the thing we have learned in 7 months of Dad being home, grace is the pace we need to have in the house.
You mentioned your special needs daughter, Maddie, and I think about the correlation in coaching, and I'm sure we actually have a coach on our staff, Mark Speckman, who was born no hands. He has no hands. But I'm always amazed in sports and in life how sometimes you look at something as a quote-unquote disability, but they have so many abilities that they bring to the table. And I'm interested in your correlation, with your daughter, because I'm sure she has some unbelievable talents in areas that you would not necessarily recognize. And you probably see the same thing in some of your baseball players. And just talk about the correlation there.
There's been a couple things that jump right to the front of my brain here, Dan. First and foremost, with Madison, she's 17. So part of her is trying to be 17. Part of her is trying to be, grow into a young woman. There's parts of her also that are going to be 12 years old the rest of her life. So there's the struggle with that for her internally, and then how she, verbalizes it, how she behavioralizes it. I have figured this out more so in the last 7 months than any other time. When Maddie asks me a question, I better have a really good answer because I still get why, or the questions keep coming. If I can nail it in 1 or 2 questions, I know I've done a really good job for her because she wants an answer. And if it doesn't click, she asks why. She's just going to keep asking why till she can work it through in her own mind. So my thought process is I'm learning to absolutely listen to the entire question, to think about an answer before I verbalize. And I've been fortunate. She's taught me that over the years. It really helps with your press conferences, pre-game and post-game. There was times in my life where maybe somebody else that's watching can identify this. If I was talking to you, Dan, I couldn't wait for you to finish so I could talk and show you how smart I was or how much knowledge or information I have. I wasn't probably really listening to you. And that's changed over time. Maddie's a big reason why that changed for me over time. So is my wife, Carla. The other thing that has really helped in a completely different tangent is loving on Maddie unconditionally and the challenges that have come with her therapies, her behavior, her growth, all of these things, the challenges we've had medically, being diagnosed with a birth defect. She also had grand mal seizures. She also went through Kawasaki syndrome. She's had some really hard physical things to work through. But what it has done for Carla and I'd love to tell you that, we would have been great. It has given us a greater appreciation for each other. And it's probably given us an opportunity to love each other better than we ever would have without Maddie being a part of our family. My wife has patience beyond patience. I'm living in my mind with the most wonderful person in the whole wide world. I can't get close to her with her character attributes. I do know this though, watching her, the grace, the mercy, the strength, the courage that she shows for Maddie and with Maddie, it's made me a better person to show those attributes as well, because I think we all can identify when we see somebody that really electrocutes us in a good way. You study them, you watch them, because you want to see what you love about them and you want to be like them. And there's a lot of areas that I'm still trying to be more like my wife because of the way I watch her work, not just with my daughter Maddie, with my son Christian as well, but with Maddie, because there's some challenges that just happened that Carla, it's almost like, she was made to be Maddie's mother, and to watch it work, it's kind of magical at times.
Reiterate for the folks your story about your wife, which I thought was interesting when you asked her to marry you. And I thought this was great because, as you well know, I think behind every great man or every great coach, you meet their spouse and you're going, well, I can see why you have a chance. But great story. Just reiterate that.
Well, I wish I would have talked to you a long time ago, because you've done it once, right?
Yes.
I've been married 3 times, and I say that with all humility. And I don't say that other than the fact that I want people that are going to watch to understand that sometimes you'll look at somebody and you'll say, oh my gosh. Well, yeah, I got an oh my gosh. I got a bunch of oh my goshes. Been divorced twice. The common fabric in both those failed relationships was me. They could have been better across the board. However, they didn't work. Divorced twice. Through some of the challenges I've had personally, professionally, I became an excessive drinker. And actually, I drank myself into becoming an alcoholic. Now I'm 21 years sober. So it was a point in time in my life where I was still struggling to find answers. I had been divorced twice. I wasn't looking for another relationship. I had met Carla. We started dating. And the interesting thing about Carla is I had to date Carla. And I hadn't had to date anybody, really date anybody, since maybe high school. That wasn't my program. That wasn't, you date, but there was always an activity you were looking for after the date. I had to date Carla. And then Carla and I developed a relationship that was pretty real. However, it was still old school. I did get her to move down with me in Florida. However, it wasn't what you think. Well, we were living together. We lived together. That's what we did. We lived together, and she was trying to watch me enough to see if I was growing up and getting better in some areas. I think she understood sooner than I thought she did that I had a drinking problem. So we worked for six years on a relationship and got to the point where I thought I was in a pretty good place. And 2 failed marriages. I get all the courage that I can muster up. And we've done some things together. She never knew Clint, the ball player. She just seen Clint, really the minor league kind of coach. And I found the guts to ask her to marry me. And this was like the biggest thing for me. I mean, it's a 3rd time. I mean, come on. And the first thing out of her mouth, she looked at me and she kind of got a little smile. She goes, that's an interesting question. And I went, well, that's not the answer I've grown accustomed to. And she goes, there's a really good guy in there, Clint. I've watched you grow and try and be a better man for 6 years. She goes, but you're still not who you can be or who you need to be. And until you find a way to make yourself happy, you'll never make me happy. Whoa. So that's a no, right? And she goes, yeah. That's Dumb and Dumber, the movie. So you say there's a chance? No, there's no chance. You're not, no. It was no. And I go, okay, because I'm an old school guy. I think, all right, what do I need to do? She goes, you need to do a couple things. And I said, oh yeah, of course, a man. no, there's 20 things I need to work on. I write them all down. But the first thing I decided my own way was to reignite my faith. I needed to recommit my life to Christ. Second of all, I need to admit that I had a problem drinking and that I was an alcoholic and get some counseling and figure that out. To this day, the other 18 things, the other 18 things, I can't tell you what they are.
I got okay. Google yell at me. Go ahead.
Well, we sparked Google up.
Yeah.
But I can't even tell you what the other 18 were. And the best thing about that is she had already started working on me as far as patience, timing, presentation, kindness, softness, gentleness, not being in a hurry, not being, not in an HOV lane your whole life. Just get her done, guy stuff, just check off your list. Yeah. So it wasn't like every week I would say, hey, how am I doing? Am I getting closer? How am I doing? Am I doing better? I just tried to keep moving the chains and showing her my intent and showing her the impact that she had on me and my growth. And it wasn't until 2 years after that I felt in a confident, convicted place to ask her to marry me again. And this time she said yes, and we've been married 20 years since then.
How did that reflect and how did that change you and improve you really as a coach?
Well, for the first time in my life, with all consistency, I actually would wake up in the morning wondering how I could help somebody else, not how I could leverage the day for myself. It's one thing to have carpe diem tattooed on your chest or wear a shirt that says seize the day. It's another thing to say leverage the day, beat everybody else around the day, take everybody to the cleaners, have a day. And I started developing a to-be list, not a to-do list. Like, what did I want to be today? Where did I want to be today? Who did I want to help? Because for so long, I really was the epitome, that old saying that the smallest package in the world is a man wrapped up in himself. I was self-consumed with my own activity, my own performance, my own gradual raise, whatever it was as a player or then as a coach. It was all about me. The sun rose and set in the crack of my backside. And at that time, it's almost like, it's like turning your camera from taking a picture to taking a selfie. You just flip the lens. And instead of being on selfie all the time, my camera lens focused outward for the first time with all consistency. And then it just helped everything. It made me a better coach. It made me a better friend. It made me a better son, brother, husband, father to Ashley. I've got a 34-year-old daughter as well that got to see daddy when he wasn't in a good place. We were divorced when she was 5 and now she's 34 and she's seen her dad for the last 21 years in a much different light than she saw him in the first 5. But the coaching aspect of it, you and I have talked about this back in our days in Colorado, to actually be a transformational coach, to be the best coach you can be for everybody else, to make everybody else's job easier, not for them to make sure you get another 4-year deal or you get, a trophy or you get coach of the year. And by the way, congratulations. I saw you divvied up. You get to break a trophy in half with another coach this past year, right? You guys got
the season before. The season before, I was kind of like you. Season before I was, then they took it away this year. So
okay. But all those things that, I would have to be honest and say they were probably my first thoughts. And then they became afterthoughts. So that's really, I write this on a card every year anniversary. God showed me how much he loved me when he brought you into my life.
Yeah. Before we start getting too far down the tracks, I want to back up just a little bit there to the Space Coast. And I know your dad was real formative and you got Christian. And I know your dad was real positive motivator, which by the way, we had an astronaut on the last episode. So I know your dad worked at NASA. I don't know what he did there, but just talk about your relationship with your dad. And I know he was real transformational with a lot of your buddies, and talk about the influence that he had and how he worked you as a young guy. And you were a 3-sport athlete. And so obviously, the apple doesn't fall from the tree, but I'm just interested in your parents and their nurturing of you and how they grew you up.
I've been blessed with as good of parents as any boy could ever want to have. They're both living today. My mother to this day, she's 85. My dad's 86, Clint and Louise. My mother, even on the last day of the season last year at the age of 62, I talked to them every Sunday morning. Talked to them a couple times, but Sunday mornings are always a call. on my way in the park, she would always told me the last thing she would say, give it everything you've got. She's told me that since I was 5 years old, Dan. Give it everything you've got. That's all you can do, Clint. Give it everything you've got. Well, I did. I gave it everything I had for 45 years based on my mom's coaching. My mom was really the scholar parent. She was the one that spent all the time on the studies. She was the one that spent all the time on the, making sure that we didn't have to be fashionable, but we needed to dress properly. My dad was involved in the space industry up there. He was on the launch team. He went from showing up and being an extra person on the list to a senior computer engineer, had 300 people work with him. My dad was life lessons, man, with my sisters, with myself. So my mom took care of the school side. My dad took care of the street side. And he was so fantastic because he never forced anything onto me. He was always available. Sometimes he was working the third shift, the second shift. Very rarely until later on, probably in junior high, did he start just working 9 to 5. Working at the Cape, his hours were all over the board, but he would show up. He would work, 9, 10 hours days and then come to the game or have practice. And he was so well versed. Baseball was I think it was his first love. However, he loved football. He was a running back in football. He knew football. And part of me played football for my dad because how much he loved it. I loved Friday night. I didn't love football like I loved baseball. Basketball, he was really good at. So I got all kinds of coaching from him and from some other people until I got really into junior high. And then my dad's coaching left, and I started taking on, other coaches, real coaches. But he was positive. He was a realist. We always dealt with the facts, but we would talk about feelings. And he said sometimes you can confuse the two. Sometimes, feelings aren't facts. And we have a tendency to over-exaggerate or overblow when things aren't going well. The one thing that to this day, I always remember him saying, you're never as good as you think you are. You're never as bad as you think you are. And that played out throughout my life. But he was so giving with his time. We never wanted we didn't get everything we wanted, but we got everything we needed as kids. So my parents were awesome. To this day, my dad, jokingly, he was my best man twice. Twice, and neither one stuck. So I went to a different best man the third time. I've been married 21 years. That's always usually a dinner table topic once in a while, just for some laughs, because the girls really like, getting on him about it. He had nothing to do with any of it. To this day, he is so awesome. He would take all through my managerial career, 16, almost 17 years as a major league manager. He took the losses harder than I did. And the craziest thing about him, as positive as he was, as realistic as he was, he's also addicted to news. So he would read everything. And then he would call me up and I go, Dad, stop. Because I stopped reading this so long ago. Bobby Cox set me down one day in a dugout at Coors Field and said, asked me a question. I said, yeah, I read the news. He goes, what is wrong with you, young man? He goes, if you're going to have any chance in this game, you better stop reading the news. You're sitting at the news conference. You know what you've said. You got to read it the next day to make sure they're going to write what they want to write. Some of them are going to be good. Some of them aren't. They're going to do what they want to do. Stop reading the news, because when you read it, he goes, it takes you somewhere. If they write about you good, oh, you like them and you think you're great. If they write about you bad, you get mad and you want to fight. What good are either of those emotions? One, you get prideful. The other, you get envious or angry. He goes, stop it. You're crazy. But my dad, to this day, his biggest relief, I think, is when I said I retired, that he doesn't have to read the news anymore. He'd go on these bloggers, and you live it. He's reading everybody's comments. And he can't believe how many people hate me. I said, Dad, that's because the people that like me, they're busy with their own life. They're not going to write in. They don't have time for it. But it's been hilarious to watch him the last 7 months, because this is the most ease, most peace I think he's ever had as well. My parents have been fantastic. I could talk about them forever, and that's enough just to honor them. But I've been blessed. And now I'm just trying to be, that's my front door. I'm just trying to be the best father I can be to Christian, because he retired from baseball at the age of 4. And he's a man of his word, because he told me after the T-ball season, I said, what do you got, son? He goes, Dad, way too intense. I'm out. And that's just what he did as a 4-year-old. I'm out. So as I mentioned earlier, it's been all about lessons. He liked playing tennis and taking lessons. He liked karate, taking lessons. But when it got to the, competing in karate, no, not that. Tennis, nah. So baseball was out, no interest in football or basketball. And then he's picked up crew in the last year. And what a fantastic transformation it's been for him for his first team sport. But the real beauty of Christian, he's so completely different from me. He's got incredible energy. He's got creativity that I never had. He can sing, he can dance. He's been in some plays and some musicals. He can draw. He's an artist. He's just so gifted in so many different ways. I never watched Star Wars movies as a kid. I've watched them all with him. Marvel Comics now. I never really spent any time with comic books as a kid. I'm going with him to the comic book store. We're buying them together. It's instead of baseball cards like I collected, he's collecting comic books. It's okay. We found different ways to connect and for him to teach me and learn me. So it's been a pretty incredible ride from that avenue.
Well, one of the uncommon aspects about doing, which are many, and I don't think everybody knows this, you had an opportunity to go to Harvard. Okay, I think you're pretty close to a 4.0. Actually, you had the same dilemma as my wife. She was straight A's except for driver's ed. She couldn't get an A in driver's ed. You got a B, right?
I got a B.
You had a multi-sport scholarship to Miami as a football, baseball player before. So obviously what was going on at home was working pretty good.
It was. The football thing, there's people that if I took you back to my hometown today would tell you I was a better football player than baseball to this day. And there were some football coaches that really wanted me to play football. There was only a couple institutions that were going to allow me to play baseball and football in college. Miami was one. Harvard was another, but Harvard was an academic scholarship.
Yeah.
And the B in driver's ed, because I flunked the driving test, the actual live test.
Hey, tell that story. That's a good story about influence. Tell that story.
It was such a life lesson. And I think there was ulterior motives because the driver's ed coach was also the track coach, and I never went out for track for 3 years at Merritt Island High. So I don't know. I'm just saying. But as I'm driving, I've done all the parking, I've done the turns, the signals, and then he goes, okay, the last part's driving. We're coming on A1A in Cocoa Beach, and it's the light's about to turn yellow, and I'm getting ready to brake, and he goes, go for it. Foot off the brake to the gas, bang. And I'm kind of looking at I'm looking up at the light as we go through it, make sure it's not red. We make it. I think, okay, good. I did a good job. He goes, pull the car over. Like, what? What do you want? Coach can't what? He goes, pull the car over. And I stopped the car, and he got a finger in me and said, that's what's going to happen to you the first Friday night you're out here with these kids. Somebody in the back seat's going to say something you're not going to think, and you're going to go. You flunked the test. You're getting an F. I'm like, what? No, F. Only F I ever made in my life. And it dropped my grade from an A to a B. So the Harvard thing was real. But the football, baseball thing, I really wanted to play both. And a lot of the football schools, Georgia said no. Florida said no. Florida State said no. Arizona State said no. Stanford said no. So it came down to really Virginia. I think they were going to allow me if I wanted to go to Virginia. But it was Miami. It was just a better fit for me. But Harvard, it's been brought up a lot in some podcasts that I've done lately. So there's a part of me that thinks that would have been really cool because they're the one real difference point of separation was when the coaches at these other universities were talking to you, they say, hey, if the grades get tough, don't worry. We'll get you a mentor. You can study over here. We'll figure it out. We'll get you through. At Harvard, they go, look, if the grades get tough, you don't go to practice. We'll get you a mentor. You spend special time in class. We're going to make sure you nail your grades. You'll play in the game, all that, but you don't have to go to practice. What? Don't worry about practice. The grades are the thing. And, the grades are the thing at all the Ivy League schools. So we got down to that point and, push came to shove. Miami was the place for me. And then, a month or two later, a couple months later, I'm drafted in the first round by the Royals, and that baseball opportunity came, and it was real. And I jumped on it. It was a dream I'd had since I was 5 years old playing wiffle ball in the backyard.
Yeah, so, again, for the folks, Clint's been in the World Series as a player, been in as a hitting coach, and obviously been in it as a manager as well. And I'm interested in your journey as a player. One of the things I love about you, there's a lot of things I love about you, Clint, but you know, so much of life really is the up and down. And we always kind of think about the ups, and most everybody's have the downs. And here you are, a first-round pick for the Royals. And your journey ends up taking you there. You play for a number of other clubs. I think you're in there for over a decade. And just talk about the lessons that you learned and the things that really stick with you in your journey as a player.
Well, it was incredible going into pro ball, being a high pick. It was all cool until it became real, and then showing up, and then actually real life started happening. Because you'd hear the whispers, well, he's a first-round pick. He'll get every chance. He's entitled. He's special, this and that. And I'd never been really special other than I could just play pretty well. Small town high school guy. I'm going to have to walk with you. Nobody else is home right here. I hope we're okay. You okay?
I'm good. Yeah, we got you. This is what I like about this. It's real life.
Oh, yeah, this is real life. I got two Jack Russell Terriers that I got to hope don't come running away.
Oh, yeah. Guard dogs. This is the part where we do the commercial. But one of the things I love about Clint is this is what he's all about here. He's gonna take care of life and take care of his family, and he's not just a famous baseball person, he's a real person.
All right, we got deliveries. I think I'm back. Can you put me back on? What do I got to do?
I don't have your picture. I think you had to walk back to better internet. We just got the black Clint H on the screen.
I think I can pull this off. All right. Are we back?
There we go. Look at you.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that delay, but we were expecting some things today. My wife and son had to run an errand. I've only been out of the house like 5 times in 7 weeks. My wife and son get out a little bit more than that, but I'm the only one here with the dogs, and we just had 3 deliveries. So
nice.
I've had to take the dirt road as a player. I was this year's phenom was the cover of Sports Illustrated. That was a pretty crazy story as well, getting on the cover of Sports Illustrated. But from that point on, expectations became a thing. And for me, I probably didn't manage them like I would do if I had another shot at it. I actually fell into that trap of trying to please everybody, listening to everybody, wanted everybody to like me. And I think the one thing I can guarantee, if you ever try that, I guarantee you're going to make some people not like you at all, because you can't make everybody happy. You need to be true to yourself. You need to find the real you. I probably lost the real me along the way. Even though I played well through the minor leagues, extremely well, got to the big leagues at the age of 20, hit a game-winning home run, my first game professionally. It was probably the farthest ball I hit as a pro player in my first game. And then it was just a battle. It was a fist fight. It wasn't a leisurely walk in the park. It was an obstacle course. Some self-inflicted, some, I think, a lot of expectations. And it doesn't matter whether it was fair or not, because my dad and I had that talk a couple of times. Life's not fair. You got to figure things out. I got popped. I think professionally, I got popped in the mouth for the first time, where I wasn't by any way, close or shape, form the best player in the league. I was trying to survive. I went from being, a thriver to a survivor. And I was able to work through that. And I actually got to a good place in my career where things were starting to happen. And it seemed like I had a pretty severe back injury where I fractured a vertebrae, and that kind of stopped my development in 81. I was traded in 82. I never really gained traction again as a player after that to be the best player I thought I could be, but I did have to work my way back to the big leagues. I had to reinvent myself. I had to learn how to catch, play third base, play a different position in the outfield because I came up as a right fielder, first base, third base, catcher, left field. I reinvented myself as a utility player and was able to finish a career up with 10 years in the big leagues, which I'll be the first one to tell you now is not easy, especially if you're not that good. To spend 10 years in the big leagues, it was a fist fight, but I loved it. I embraced it. I never back away from work. I've never backed away from a challenge, and I've never backed away from reality. This is okay. This is the situation I'm in. I got to do the best I can with it. So there were a lot of lessons learned through my playing career that really put me in, I think, a really good frame of mind to serve as a coach once I decided to stop playing. And I love the fact that people say when you retired, because good players retire most players, people just stop calling you and offering you jobs. You really don't retire. This year, you know, I can remember when I retired, I actually had some guy in a grocery stop goes, it was just a smart aleck in a grocery store. You know, 100 people would grab me and say, hey, we love you, this, that. And one guy came up and goes, by the way, I heard you retired. He goes, how do you retire from not having a job? You got fired as a manager. Nobody hired you back. Nobody offered you a manager job. What do you mean you retired? Just out of nowhere. You know, I got my kids with me, and I'm like, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your input. Hey, ma'am, I got some coupons here. Can you just check me out real quick? But it put me in a good position because I dealt with adversity. I dealt with failure. I've had some success. I've watched Hall of Fame players play. I've watched preparation. I've watched, you know, how you prepare, how you actually go about the performance in the game, and then how do you evaluate after. So I went through all that, and there's a lot of lessons learned that I've been able to help with players along the way, help coaches along the way, because I went through a coaching career then for 5 years before I became a manager. But I kind of really always have felt more indebted to the guys, and you've had to do it. You know, you were in an HOV lane for a while. And then, you know, you find yourself on a dirt road. But you know what? You find out a lot about yourself when you're on the dirt road. And I think what happened for me is I really found out who I was as a coach and as a person on that dirt road in life and in sport. And it's what put me in a position to be blessed with an opportunity to manage for 16, almost 17 years in the major leagues. That's crazy cool. I mean, that's blessed beyond measure in my eyes. And you mentioned the other thing, you know what's kind of crazy? 3 World Series trips, player, coach, and manager. That's a small group. Now, we finished second in all 3 of them. That's even a smaller group, Dan. Let's go to the World Series 3 times and not win. Don't let anybody ever tell you, hey, as long as you get there, you're okay. No.
Well, Clint, we do have a few things in common in that I, like you, have been fired 3 times. And I've been in 2 national championships and came in second place both times.
We do have a lot in common. There's no doubt. No doubt.
Okay, so jump forward. I know you did a little stint in the minors, and then you get. I ran into you at the Rockies, and you took those guys to the World Series. And I think what was really cool there is you guys just got super, super hot. I'd like to know your thoughts on that, of how you guys really finished. And then, you know, unfortunately, you ran a buzzsaw with the Red Sox that year. And then again, like just a short time after, when you're like the king of the hill, then all of a sudden, like, oh, we're going to take your uniform away from you. So just talk about your time in Colorado, again, the lessons, and I'm interested in how you put all that stuff in your mind.
Well, I was fortunate because every time I've been fired, what's come next, I wasn't expecting, and it turned out to be better than I could have written up on my own. It just has. I never expected to be a manager in Colorado. When I took my first job with the Rockies, 5 years in the minor leagues as a hitting coordinator, Don Baylor hired me. I played against Don, but Don was a presence. He was a grown man. He was, oh my gosh, you know, I just didn't feel like I was in the same room. Yet he believed in me and hired me and empowered me. I worked for Don, I worked for Jimmy Leland, I worked for Buddy Bell, 3 really good baseball men. And then when the day I was hired as manager, I actually thought Danny O'Dowd was coming to fire me as the hitting coach. Because he called me up in the morning and says, hey, can we talk? And I'm like, well, yeah, you're the general manager. We can talk whatever. He goes, well, I don't want you to come in here. I want to go to your house. I'm like, okay, that's different. So I called my dad up and said, hey, Dad, I think I'm getting fired. We were horrible. We were 10 games under 500. The offense wasn't clicking. I was in charge of a couple things there. You just don't know. But he came, and then we walked through some things, and then out of nowhere he goes, yeah, I'm going to let Buddy go later today, and I'd like to know if you'd be our manager. I had no clue.
Why did he do that, Clint? What did he see in you, truthfully? Not just put the humble card away, just like, what did he see in you? Why did he make you the manager?
I from the conversations in the past, he was looking for he was looking for a different personality. He was looking for a different lens. you hear it all the time, different voice. And sometimes the different voice is real. And I felt that he thought I'd honor the men that have come before me. And it's like, sometimes you get fired or somebody gets fired, the next guy comes in, he says all these things he's going to do. Like the other guy wasn't trying to do. Like the other group was just trying to screw things up for 3 or 4 years before that. All of them. It's kind of, it's maddening at times, but I thought he knew there was humility involved. I really think he felt there's some loyalty in place, and we were going to go through a hard time where the expectations maybe, that I could handle them because of the dirt road I had been on. I think those were some of the attributes he looked forward to, and I think he looked for the 5 years that I built relationships within the organization with everybody. It was all inclusive. Even when I was the major league coach, I'd still talk to the minor league staff. I'd still see minor league players, a conversation or what have you. And the way I kind of identified with the employees within the structure, of the building, all those things I think came into play. And I think he liked my offensive mind in that ballpark of things I was going to try and put into play. He did like the fact that I'd caught and understood the pitching game from that aspect. So, I think that would have been the criteria that he was looking for, why he chose me. So that happened in a hurry.
You've always been a locker room builder. I was so impressed when I went there, just the attitude of the guys in the locker room. And I still remember your locker room of having the flags of the countries that all the guys you had, and just and I think that's a real strength of yours. But just talk about, and I think that dovetails into your following of your emails, of which I'm one, of making a difference. And just talk about how you build that locker room and your feeling about that.
Well, the one thing I've tried to really resonate with is, everybody's got a game plan at the start of every season. And for the most part, a lot of the game plans are very similar. They're very similar. And I've always thought, how do I help create separation? In what areas can we be better than other teams that have nothing to do with velocity, strength? We're going to work on those things. Everybody works on those things. But what can we do for the men to help them become cohesive, connected, committed, to have courage, to be able to look adversity in the face and understand that, whatever happens, good, now what? Or that happened, so what, now what? To find a way to really maximize what we're in control of, and that's today. So to honor each man individually, that was the idea behind the flag. It's just a representation that we're all in this together, and we all come from different places. And I spent 4 years playing winter ball, so I had a deep appreciation of what the Latin players had to go through when they come over here to play, because not a lot of the gringos would go over and play, hardly at all anymore today. But when you went over there and tried to figure it out for 3 or 4 months, it was intense. And if you didn't play well right out of the chute, they'd ship you home. They didn't care how good you were, what kind of year you had back there. So it really toughened me up in some areas, and it woke me up in some areas to honor where people come from, and then to ask questions where they come from, who was important in them, to find out if there was a male figure, sometimes it's a mom and dad, sometimes it's a mom, sometimes it's a dad, to find that story behind them. And who were they looking for inspiration? Who strengthened them? What did they learn? And you learn a lot more, because some of them, they missed out on some things maybe in their home life that you can help provide here. But the other thing was, right away, I figured out, because the questions I had as a player and as a young coach, when I would get moved around or traded and sit down with somebody, normally people say hello, you go to a new organization, they introduce you, ask you a few questions. But I came up with 3 questions that I've used throughout my coaching and managerial career, based on my playing career and my young career as a high school player. First question I would ask every coach or general manager when I went to interview, or player, can I trust you? And all these players would start coming in. I would tell them, I want you to ask that question about myself and our staff, and give us an opportunity to answer. It's not going to happen in a day, won't happen in a week, won't happen in a month, but we want to earn your trust. Because it's not so much like maybe when you played or I played, you're supposed to trust the people. You went in a manager's office, 2 things happened, both were bad. You were getting traded or you were in trouble. There was no reason to go in and have a conversation with a manager, or really an in-depth conversation with a coach. It was just a different time and space. So can I trust you? Because truthfully, until you earn their trust, nothing else good happens after that. Second, can I make you better? Can you make me better? Well, we've all had people that we've trusted. Those are the people we let coach us. We've all had people that we don't trust probably as coaches, and we'd let them coach us a certain degree of the way that we're done. That's as far as I'm going. Or if you've been like me, Dan, I can remember some coaches talking to me. All I did was nod my head and just hope they would shut up and leave. You know, that's how it was. So can I trust you? Can you make me better? And do you care about me? Do you actually care about me? You know, do they know the people at UC Davis? Do they know what you did at Boise? What you did in the community at Boise? Everybody knows what you did on a football field. Do people know about the kids you've raised? The wife behind the man? Because like you said, behind every good man's a much better woman. Do they know about Colorado? Some of the different challenges you had there, some of the ups and downs, what you still did in the community there, what you still stood for, what you owned, the accountability you showed. So to get to know the player, can I make you better? Can I trust you? And do you care about me? As soon as we get those three questions answered for the player, we put them in the spot to be the best player they've ever been. And that's what my goal was with each new player who would come in. We'd outline this. We would lay this out. And we would share it with them. And with the coaching staff, I would say the one thing that I have no time for whatsoever, is any of you to develop into the oh-no coach. And they would be like, what? The oh-no coach? No, like you may say, oh, you're the O coach, you're the D coach. No, the oh-no coach is the guy you have as soon as he starts walking towards the player drops his head and goes, oh no, here he comes. I've probably been that guy a couple times. You know, you've had him as a coach. I know I had him as a coach. As soon as he comes, I'd be like, son of a gun, this guy never brings good news. You know, if I went 3 for 4 yesterday, he's going to want to talk about the at-bat where I rolled over into a double play. I just know it. So we're not going to be the oh-no coach. We're going to be invested in them on the field, off the field. We're going to earn their trust, so they're going to have real conversations with us. And that's basically been the way I've always wanted our clubhouse to function. And I want the players to own the clubhouse, because we spend more time in baseball than we do in the clubhouse than we do with our families, you know, in an extended year. They need to have a safe place where their voice is heard, their voice matters, and they count. So that's the Cliff Notes.
Go back to the hot finish you had there in the World Series year, and you know, what advice could you give a coach, or what your reflection like? How do you get to that state of flow? And then I know you had a long time off before the World Series, and then you know the Sox took 4 from you. You had 2 contrasting results. Just talk about the lessons learned there and what you could teach us about that.
You know, it was great. It was a season which was kind of average. We were hovering around 500 for five and a half months. However, we never let it get away from us. And the guys stayed committed to one another. And I told them early in the year that, you know what, I really felt this could be a special year for all of us, but we're going to need everybody here to commit to each other. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. I can promise you this. I can promise you it's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. The thing we're not going to do is we're not going to get all high and tight when we win, and we're definitely not going to get down, sad, mad when we lose. We're going to honestly self-evaluate. We're going to move on. We're going to win the next game. And, you know, we're going to keep doing that till we win the next game. So basically what I did, and I pulled the leadership group in that we had at that time, and I told them, you know what, guys, this is a perfect time for me because I need to trust you guys like I've never trusted before. You've been together a few years. So it's kind of like the first time you took the car keys and threw them to your boy and said, you know, take me for a ride. I don't know how you did it, but I know that some people, you know, it's take me for a ride. They throw the kid the keys, and then they put on a helmet, three seat belts. They're working the brakes over on the other side of the car while the kid's driving. They don't trust them, right? Or you throw them the keys, and you say, take me for a ride. I'm going to get in the back. Go. Let's go. And then from that point on, I just tried to be a GPS. You know, be careful. We're exiting the highway. Or be careful. You know, there's some traffic up in front. Or the guy in the plane that says, please put on your seatbelts. There's going to be some turbulence. I'll let you know when it's safe to move around the building. I just tried to be kind of in the background, kind of on the side, and let them own it. And they did. We never got hot, though. But we never got cold. And then at the end, things started clicking, and it's when one of the most beautiful times of baseball I've ever been involved in, because it's like watching your kid play in the backyard and everything he does is aces. And it was all of them. It wasn't one of them. It was all of them. We won 21 out of 22 games. We were 6.5 games out with outside of 2 weeks to play. You know, it was impossible, but it wasn't. And game 163, it took us to that final game. You know, and then the Padres hit a home run in the 13th inning to go up 2. We got to face Hoffman. The good thing was Hoffman had warmed up like 8 times from the 8th inning.
He was wore out.
He was wore out in the blink of an eye. We win that game, and then we have a 1 day off, and we go to Philly, and we wipe them out. And then 1 day off, and we go to Arizona, and we wipe them out in 4. But to this day, the documentary, 21 Days, is one of the best things you could ever want to watch, just for fun, about a group of men who didn't care who got the credit, that sold out to each other and did some pretty crazy, incredible, fun things. And then life happened. We finished so strong, we had an 8-day break till the start of the World Series. Now, the 8-day break, it hurt us. But what really hurt us is the Red Sox were almost as hot as we were on the other side, and they only had like 2 days off, and they got to roll right in. They were talented and hot and played with a seamless transition right into it and just took care of business. So that was the downside of it. But what it did for the city of Denver to this day, I mean, that flag up in left field, Rocktober, people still talk about it. They revisited a 10-year anniversary. I think it was, 2 years ago. I wasn't able to attend because I was managing, but the players all, you know, they're FaceTiming me, sending me stuff. To this day, it's always going to be a very special event. And you hear it in every championship everywhere. At the end, I'll say, it took all of us. It just took all of us to get it done. And it was fantastic the way the city backed us and supported us, and very special.
Yeah, that was incredible. The place really lit up. Everybody was kind of a big Bronco fan, and there still are Bronco fans. But then you really kind of got that city going. So then you take your talents to the Texans, and you go to the World Series again as a hitting coach. And I know you had Josh Hamilton there, who had an unbelievable season, and you obviously had a huge impact on his life and his career. And then I think he tailed off a little bit after Connection. But just talk about your experience there.
Well, in Colorado, I wish I had $1 for every time somebody told me we could never win because of the altitude. And when I got to Texas, the first thing I started hearing, well, you'll never win here because it's too hot. And they hadn't really won anything. I was like, wow, that's interesting. Ron Washington was the manager. And the irony here is Ron Washington was my coach in AAA for a couple of years. It was my third base coach. I got to actually go back and be the coach for him. And we got to rekindle and reignite a relationship that was built on, friendship, loyalty. We both had deep passion for the game of baseball. We loved the players. We loved teaching. So to reignite with him, that coaching staff was very significant, very talented. The player pool was really, really good. And they felt that year that they should compete. They needed some certain things. We ended up having the best offensive team in either league that year. Having Vladimir Guerrero as your DH doesn't hurt, and a Hall of Famer. But Michael Young was in the infield. Elvis Andrus was in the infield. The first baseman we had that year was Chris Davis, Justin Smoke, and Mitch Moreland. All three of them turned out to be really good big league players. And then we had, one of the Molina brothers. We had Ben, Bill Ardello. But in the outfield, it was Nelly Cruz. It was Josh Hamilton. It was just a talented team with a lot of power. But the year Hamilton had there was crazy. He was the MVP. He had a stretch for the first 2 months of the season. It was pretty pedestrian. The numbers were good, but they were hollow. It was based on about 5 or 6 really huge games. And he made a swing adjustment. We actually rebuilt the swing June 1st. Rebuilt it. He got so frustrated. He kept asking me what you want to do. And I said, I'd get rid of this toe tap. You keep saying drives you crazy. So we eliminated a toe tap on June 1st. We got to a point in that game, Mark Burley's pitching. He's 0 for 3. He goes down the end of the dugout, and he tells the assistant hitting coach, Johnny Nair, and he says, you tell that old man I'm not doing that anymore. I haven't barreled the ball up in 3 at-bats. He says, well, you go down and tell that old man that just worked with you 4 hours today and gave you his heart and soul that you're done with everything you did today in 3 at-bats. He muttered, he mumbled, he said something walking by me. He went down the tunnel. I heard a bunch of things bang around. He came back out. He stuck with it. He got 3 hits that night. I think he hit a homer, drove in 4 runs. He got 46 hits the next 29 days in the month of June and went on to be the MVP player. Now, people say, well, you're pointing that out. You're the hitting coach. You helped make the adjustment. No. You know who made the adjustment? The most pivotal person in that whole deal was when Johnny Nairn stood up to him and looked him in the eye and said, no, I'm not telling him. You go down and tell him. Because what if Johnny would have just said, yeah, whatever, okay, Josh, just whatever. Who knows? But the point being that, everybody needs a helper. Everybody needs an arm lifter. Everybody needs somebody to broker hope with them. And Johnny did that for me in Texas. We got to the World Series together. He's still my friend today. And it was very significant. But I've had him throughout my life, somebody along the way that's come and picked me up when I was down, through the divorces, through the alcoholism, personally, professionally. And that's all I've ever tried to do, since we turned things around 21 years ago. And then from there, you're managing in Colorado. You're fired 14 months after, standing on a podium, holding the National League trophy. And now you've got 2 teams want you to manage the next year, Pittsburgh and New York. You're not managing again, out of nowhere. And to spend 9 years in Pittsburgh and actually 20 consecutive losing seasons before we busted through and went to the playoffs 3 straight years. And still, I think, they've been to the playoff 1 time in the last 27 years. And 3 times I was the manager of the team. However, the coaching staff, the players, the people I got to connect with and grow up with and learn from, I've been on a journey that's just been unbelievable. And I've been blessed all along the way with good men and women that God has found a way to orchestrate in my life. They were probably there in my early days. I was just not paying attention. I definitely wasn't looking for any help.
I'm really fascinated by your approach at Pittsburgh because obviously we know big money rules in business and pro sports, and the Bucks were not necessarily one of those. But I was really fascinated by your story about your development of those players and how you dealt with that, both in the development of the players in your club. And if you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, we did. We just told them the truth, man. Here's who we are. Here's the model. Here's how it's going to work. We need to find ways to win at the margins. We were talking about win at the margins 9 years ago. And then, winning at the margins has become a thing in the last 3 years. We were talking about human analytics 9 years ago. And then all the other analytics have jumped in the game. But truthfully, I think the thing that really got us the biggest benefit, biggest bang for our buck, pun intended, was growing these men up collectively together, knowing what our game plan was, how we had to win, what we had to do to beat people, and then knowing the reality of it is nobody's probably going to get overpaid here. Just the way it is. But the rebonding of a baseball team with a city, we played on that. We shared that with them. I can remember showing them videos of the history. We are family. Clemente's heroics, Mazeroski's walk-off home run. I said, the hard part about this, most of these tapes are black and white, guys. We got to put some color on the walls, some colored movies, some colored highlights, some colored film. We can do this if we will follow this plan. And we laid it out from the, and it was everybody. It was Nutting. It was, with what he was able to provide. But then it was Coonley. It was Huntington, the GM, Kyle Stark, the player development guy, myself, the coaching staff. But at the end of the day, the players. And when we brought in Russell Martin and AJ Burnett, a couple guys we brought in that had skin in the game, and the kind of guys that if you invited them to a fist fight, they bring a knife. It really helped us develop a mentality that once we got across the lines, it was our game. It didn't matter payroll. It didn't matter Democrat, Republican, Latin, American, far East. None of that mattered. Between the white lines, baby, that was ours. We own that. And you're going to have to come take it from us because we're going to go out there and our plan is to take it from you. And they just embraced it. They gravitated to it and they owned it.
I know you spent another thing we have in common. We spent some time in the booth, and I was kind of getting my PhD, but I thought it was very interesting, the things I learned. I'm interested in your perspective when you got up in the booth and you stepped away from the forest and looked at it. What were some things that really stuck out in your mind that you learned?
The first thing, like I said, I had some great people coach me up. And as soon as I decided to do this, I had one of my old managers call me up and said, now, when you go get that mic in your hand, he says, just be smart. Don't be a smart ass. And I said, okay. He goes, because you can be both. I've been around you. He said, you want to represent. He goes, be smart. Be human. Remember how hard the game was to play. What can happen is the longer you've not played the game or the higher up you go to watch a game, the easier the game becomes. He said, be careful. Honor, respect, those are still real with the mic in your hand, just like it used to be with a bat in your hand. He said, use that mic as a teaching tool, as one of empathy. Tell stories. People love stories. And actually he said, have some fun with yourself, because there's enough guys that are going to tell you how great they were. Be one of those other guys that you can say, you know what, you won't believe what I did one time. And I still got into the big leagues. I still figured some things out, but here's what happened to me. So the pace of the game, obviously, is so much slower up top. The fact that you can look at replays, you can replay. I mean, the game, it's a whole different deal. But the empathy that I had for also now watching people watch games, they're not even watching the game. They're on their phones, they're doing other stuff, and they've already got a story written, and they just hope to get a couple quotes afterwards that matches their stories. And now I realize how many times when I was down there, somebody would check out because I didn't give them the answer they wanted. They had a story written, and my answer is not, that quote's not going to fit. But just some of the games that went on up there. But I love the fact that I could watch the game, I could study the game, and you can watch body language, how guys run on the field or don't run on the field, how they run off the field or don't run off the field. It's more magnified when balls aren't run out from up top than it was on the side. And how plays can make, gosh, that was an easy play. He should have made that. But when you're down field speed, game speed, it's crazy. So it really helped my appreciation once I got back in. Slow down, be kind, listen, use your eyes and ears first. Then if there's something to verbalize, then share.
We're getting close to wrapping this thing up here a little bit. I want to, Hanbo, let's throw this picture up here for the folks. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, this is really what I think about Clint Hurdle right here. It's World Series. That's right, baby. That's our man, Batman. Talk to us about that story there, Clint.
I've not missed a Halloween in costume for 57 straight years. I did it with my daughter. I did it when I was a kid all the way up, even as a player, whatever. Halloween has been a very special day. I can remember being in the World Series in Boston, having my kids with me. It was on Halloween. We dressed up, we walked the halls and knocked on hotel doors. We've always done it. To this day, we still do it. It's a thing. It's a real thing. And it's a blast. It's just another way to bring the family together and have some fun.
For the folks not watching on YouTube, that's Clint in a Batman uniform with one of his kids, Robin, and another one, Batgirl, I guess. Batgirl right there.
Maddie was Batgirl and Christian was Robin. You betcha.
Well, what do you think, Clint? What lies on the horizon here? I know you talked about, I think you should write a book, by the way, because I think a lot of people can learn and benefit both as a parent, as a ball player, as a coach. I think you have a lot of wisdom, and it's great to hit the pause button here. But what do you think lies in the future for you?
Well, I've eliminated some things. I think sometimes that's the way to look at it. You get to eliminate some things, and I don't want to travel anymore. I'm not going to wear the uniform anymore. I was blessed with another opportunity to do it, and I chose not to. I want to reignite with my wife. I want to reignite with my children. Maddie could be home forever. But my son, there's a possibility. It's 3 more years at home, then he's off to college. I want to be, in my eyes, the analogy I'm using, if our family is a band, I want to be the bass player for the next 3-4 years. The guy on the side keeping rhythm and time and letting everybody else have the mic up front, play the solos, do this or do that. I'm just going to be over there. I've initiated, there's some conversations that have been initiated with a couple different teams Would there be something to help along the way in the future in the front office? You know, maybe that could happen. Broadcasting work, maybe that could happen because your finger's still in the pulse. You got no skin in the game like you used to. But my time is going to be hard to drag me. I showed you the video back here in my backyard.
I know.
It's going to be hard to drag me out of here right now. And I've got, you know, even my dad and I had this conversation. He goes, son, you know, don't you got to have something to do. You need to, you know, baseball. I go, Dad, I go, how many years did you work? He said, well, I worked 43. I said, okay, I worked 45. I said, what age did you retire? He said, 62 and a half. I said, I retired at 62 and a half. I don't know. I really believe this with all my heart. Something outside this household, this family, because I'm doing a bunch of nonprofit work. I plugged into the local FCA here. I'm on the board of 2 ministries that I'm helping out. So I have enough to be functionally busy and hopefully share impact and influence. But if God opens a door somewhere else back in the game a bit, he'll open that door. Those conversations will get taken care of and things will happen. I can remember Kelly McGregor, my mentor in Denver, telling me when I was the manager. He said, Clint, as long as God wants you in that managerial chair, no man can move you out. When God doesn't want you in that chair, no man can keep you there. And how true that's been throughout my life. So something else, I think he'll let me know. He'll open those doors and something else will happen. Right now, I've got my hands full here with homeschool. I've got 4 more weeks and trying to stay in the house and you know, stay out of trouble.
Okay, Gibby, you could again go on forever about this, but give me your top 2 or 3 tips for all Little League coaches out there. Given all the things you've been through, top 1 or 2 or 3 things for all Little League coaches to know.
Make sure your players play all over the field, because he may be the best shortstop that you have. There might be a pretty good guy that can play shortstop. He's your best second baseman. He's best somewhere else. So rotate your players. Find a way to reward them other than the score at the end of the game and the batting average. There's different ways that they can celebrate the small wins within the game. And then I would also, I think I shared this even with you, but the first thing I do is have a meeting with the parents and tell them they're not general managers. That I'm really looking for some help. This could happen. This could be a beautiful experience for all of us. If I can get some helpful insight, I can get some cohesion in doing some of the things, the practice. However, second guessing, water cool talk, small talk, shadow talk, I just want to be out front with it. I'd have a meeting with the parents, one of the first things I do, and we're going to try and win, absolutely, but everybody is going to play. Everybody is going to find a rhythm and a rhyme that makes sense for them. Some people will play more than others, but let's work together on this. So when it's all said and done, at the end of the time, the kids can talk about what a blast they had and not listen to a bunch of whining. So that's what I'd give to them.
Kind of continue that just a little bit for the sports parent, for the sports parents that wants to optimize their kids' experience. Again, you lived it with your dad. You're living it with Christian. What would you tell them?
That the first thing I did already mention, you're not the GM. And unfortunately, there's great parents out there. And then there's some, though, that they feel, you know, that financial tie makes them have a bigger voice than what they really do and how things should run. You've got somebody that is committing their time, you know, and you've got somebody that is trying to find a way to help. Because, again, nobody's going to take this job and say, how can I go here and screw everything up, make all the parents mad, and the kids have no fun? So show some grace, have real conversations instead of, you know, trying to help them out from an analysis standpoint or from a strategy standpoint, and have those conversations with them about their children, the conversations that you need to have, because they're going to have people that are going to tell them what they want to hear. You need to be the voice of reason, tell them what they need to hear. You know, Johnny's a pretty good player. Johnny's not the best player. Here's some things Johnny can do to get better. You telling me he's the best player doesn't make him the best player, because parents see through a lens that's pretty biased. You know, and the coach, yeah, he may have some biases as well, but what coach has ever wanted to not go out there and do the best he could to help his team win? right? And I think that gets overlooked a lot of times by the parents. And if they're so good at what they think they can coach, then why don't they come on board and help? Because most of them really don't want to do that. But it's just, again, it goes back to some grace. Cut the guy some slack, and if you've got a problem, have a meaningful conversation, have FaceTime with him, and an unemotional conversation. Because I've actually seen, I went to a Little League park one time, and there was almost a fight broke out. One father's telling his kid to relax. The kid's hitting in the box. This happened 2 years ago in Pittsburgh. Kid's in the box. Dad's behind the screen yelling, "Relax, relax." The kid turns around, takes off his helmet, he goes, I am. And then some parent made a smart aleck remark to him, before you know it, they're strapping right. I mean, it's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. And that's probably an overplay that doesn't happen everywhere, but it happens a lot. Enjoy the game.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, this is going to be my last question. You're so interesting. You're like the most interesting man in the world. You talked about being the bass player. I know you're a music guy. Give me a top 2 or 3 or 4. Who's on your playlist? Like, what would Clint Hurdle be listening to driving to the ballpark?
Oh, buddy, back in the day, the Doors were my go-to band coming in. Morrison Hotel, the entire, my first album I bought was Meet the Beatles in '64. I've been a music aficionado ever since then. I've done 2 music projects with my daughter that's taken me down memory lane. And we had to do a timeline, music in the house, music growing up, music around JFK's assassination, music in high school, Vietnam War. But to this day, you'd be hard pressed that if I had to pick, I could give you 2 bands, and I can whittle it down to 2 bands. If I could only have music by 2 bands the rest of my life, it would be Grand Funk and the Doobie Brothers.
Okay.
I'd just bang it, and I'd bang it. Now, I can take you other places. I mean, my gosh, we went and saw Adele at the Staples Center, my wife and I, and she was fantastic. I've seen Eric Clapton at the Gardens, and he did one of the best concerts we've ever seen. That was 3 years ago. We've seen The Boss multiple times. I still have a crush on Stevie Nicks with Fleetwood Mac. I mean, I've seen them 3 times. The Who have tricked me 4 times on their go-away tour, their retire tour. They come back. I've seen them I don't know how many times. So Billy Joel captivates me. Adele, new artist, Adele. But there's new bands out that are pretty cool too. The Revivalists are one of my favorite new bands that are out there right now. And I was just jamming to something today by Citizen Cope. My daughter's like, "Dad, Citizen Cope? Really?" I go, "Yeah, that's right, girl. Daddy's got, I know what time it is."
Oh my gosh, I could go on forever. You made a huge difference in my life, Clint. You were a big inspiration to me, and things are going better for you in Colorado than they were for me at the time. And but just what an inspiration and what a role model, and really had a huge effect. I know we touched a little bit on the emails and the 5,000 emails of Make a Difference Today, and people can get hooked up with that. On what's the website they need to go to, Clint?
If they would type in clinthurdle.com, it gives you a small website, tells you a little story, and then you submit your preferences. There's a daily devotional and then an encouraging email. And you know what's funny? A good friend of mine did a story a week ago about the emails that just kind of rebroadcast. She's an AP writer, so it went everywhere. Since she put that story out, we've picked up over 800 new subscribers on the 1,800 new subscribers on the encouragement email. No, 1,800 on the devotion and 2,500 on the encouragement email. It's up over like 77,000 people now. It's crazy. Really humbling.
Unbelievable. Hey, I really appreciate you spending some time with us, and I know you do this a ton, and I know you do it to make a difference. And I'm a little bummed I was going to get down there and catch in the bullpen a little bit. I could still get down in the catcher position, but I don't know, maybe I'll have to come do minor league bullpen there with you somewhere. I don't know. But I really love you, really respect you, really followed you. I want you to know you've had a huge impact on me. And a lot of times people go, "Hey, who's your football guy?" There's football guys out there. There are. But, I always kind of point out guys like you and some of these other people that weren't necessarily football players that have really been through, as you say, the dirt road, and really inspirational to me.
Well, that's humbling. And that's, we all need helpers. Like I said, But I can tell you this, there's a much better chance that I'm going to go find you coaching before you're going to find me coaching again. And I'm warning you right now that one of my first 3 trips that I'm going to take when I get out of this house and get me some guy time is to come to UC Davis and see you do your thing.
We'll get you. I hope you still have that number 13 jersey we gave you at Colorado. I'll get you a number 13 UC Davis jersey. So we'll take care of you.
I just want to come see you, buddy. I want to watch you do your thing.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you. I love you. Much respect. Thanks for being on. Peace.
Dan, thank you very much, man. I love you.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
That's been Uncommon Engineering with my man Clint Hurdle, Dan Hawkins, UC Davis. Have a great one.
Back in Oakland, hope you're in a good mood. The manager certainly was moments ago. Fired up the Grand Funk Railroad.
Absolutely
American
fired
band.
up.